sweet compassion when my soul's in need. I find compassion for friends and enemies. My own compassion is where my spirit breathes. Oh.
Live from Santa Barbara, welcome to Compassionate Connection. The purpose of our show is to share with you how to connect compassionately within ourselves and with others when we really choose to learn the language of compassion direct from the heart. We can actually transform our lives and our relationships. I highly recommend you check into this because it's well worthwhile for a more peaceful, enjoyable life. And tonight I'm so excited. We have a wonderful guest with us, Susan Allan. Thank you for coming and being with us tonight, Susan.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you a little tonight. It's going to be about total mastery. Now, how fascinating is that? Regardless of whatever your issue is, that's something that you want to acquire, I'm sure. So I'm going to kind of let you know a little about the dictionary definition of mastery is expert skill of or knowledge, excuse me. So the purpose of mastery is to have command over a situation so that you can create the most favorable outcome. Mastery is what helps us create solutions. And tonight, fortunately, Susan Allan is going to discuss with us the different levels of skills that actually lead to mastery and how we can go about acquiring them. So whether you're interested in finance, health, relationships, or even your own personal inner peace, mastering yourself is the first step for mastering your life. And teaching this to your children, of course, I'd like to add or mate, but it's very essential. Our future, our children. Now let's get from the novice state to mastery with Susan Allan's Step to Success. Oh boy, now I want to tell you about what Susan has going on. She is an amazing life coach and a very successful business coach. She is also a certified mediator and is certified in Herman brain dominance, used by 90% of the Fortune companies. During her 20 years in fashion industry, more than $400 million of her products were sold. So impressive. Susan has been seen on Fox News and on hundreds of television and radio shows demonstrating the results that we can create when we actually transform the way we think, listen, speak, and act, and focus on solutions instead of problems. Also, a wonderful opportunity. Susan offers a complimentary 1-hour private telephone session so that everyone may move from the state of being a novice to an intermediate, to an expert, and finally to mastery, so that you can learn the steps to succeed. Oh, this is going to just bring people full circle to their heart's desire. I'm really
Blow
thrilled.
the roof off the studio.
Yay! How encouraging. Well, we have a lot of ground to cover tonight, Susan.
Okay,
I'm so
let's
excited.
go.
I know.
Let's go, everybody. Get your notepads. Get your iPads. Get any pads.
Oh, I should do that too. But, okay. Now, how can you describe the difference between novice, intermediate, expert, and to mastery?
When you're a novice, you're starting something for the very first time. So you don't know what you don't know, and you don't even know what you do know, right? It's brand new. You're at the beginning of a learning curve. as you begin to learn things and you move towards being an intermediate. So you know what you don't know, a little bit of that, and you know some of the things you know, and you just have entry-level skills you can kind of manage. You can get along. You're not going to be able to win a tennis game, but you can play tennis. You're not going to be able to enter an orchestra and be a member of the orchestra, but you could play a violin if you're an intermediate, right? Now, as you move to being an expert, you now have skills. Somebody who appreciates and recognizes what real skills are in the field would say, she's got them, he's got them. You're an expert. But you're not an Olympic level at this point. That's true mastery. When you master something, you're able to handle problems before they come up, as they come up, and avoid most of the problems altogether. And that's when it's really fun. Because if you can be in a tennis tournament and you know you're going to do well, you may win, you may not win, but you know you're going to do really well because there aren't that many people who are better at tennis than you, then life is fun. And the same thing is true whether it's a health issue, whether it's a financial issue, a relationship issue, a communication issue. Life is fun when you have mastery over skills. And as you guys know, and I certainly know, and Gigi knows as well, life can be very difficult when you are a novice or an intermediate in life, and particularly in the 17 or 18 domains of life. You've got to learn this stuff.
Thank you, Susan. Very true. I really appreciate how we're going to explain how to get to that mastery tonight.
Yes.
Awesome. Can you explain how these levels of skills are the same in many different areas of training?
Yeah, sure. You know, if you're learning how to drive a car, I don't want to be a passenger in your car, and nobody else does either. If you're learning how to play tennis, and I'm a decent tennis player, I don't want to play tennis with you, and nobody else does either. If you're a novice in communication, and I don't mean that you're just learning how to speak English or Spanish or French, but I mean the communication subtleties. If you're just a master in that versus a novice, well, a novice, you're not really a lot of fun to talk to because you get triggered, you get irritated, you may get huffy, you may have all that stuff going on. And so it's the same in any area. If somebody really is looking for partnership, we want someone who's an expert or a master in the fields of partnership.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. That's right. That's what we're looking for. Thank you, Susan. What are the few key differences in attaining mastery of different skill sets?
Well, you know, it's interesting. If you have a really good eye-hand coordination, you may be good at basketball and baseball and football and tennis and golf, right? Because it's a certain adjustment. You've got a very clear idea of how your body interacts with the ball and gets a particular result. Now, you may have to develop new muscles. You're using different muscles from golf from the ones that you're using from tennis. But if you're someone like me who has very poor eye-hand coordination, never played sports, didn't like it at all, I was a really talented and skilled dancer, and I was a singer and all that, but forget about sports, then it doesn't matter to me. Any of these sports is a nightmare. So if I was a camp and they were going to say, well, now we're going to play tennis and then we're going to play softball, you know, it's like couldn't wait till it was all over, you know? So it's just a question of understanding your neural pathways. If you're a great reader, then it doesn't really matter to you what you're reading. You may enjoy fiction like I do more than anything else, but I'm reading 4 or 5 books a week, so I can read whatever I have to read. If you're a musician, there are many musicians who can, you know, maybe you were trained on the piano or maybe you were trained on a violin, but, you know, these are both in some way stringed instruments, so you're going to have an easier time figuring out what to do if somebody gives you a cello as a gift. So these are neural pathways. What I want you to understand is that it looks like it's about your body, but it really is just about your brain.
Oh, thank you. What a huge point right there. Now, what about the people who really believe that they're good at something and they're really not skilled?
Right. You know, like, that horrible, idea of a child who's learning how to play the violin and squeaking and squealing, right? They're really, really terrible. You've been probably, you have had small children and now you have grandchildren. So the idea of children putting on a school play scares me. It really scares me. But, if they're your children, then you think they're enchanting and adorable, right?
Of course.
But, we just saw the Academy Awards, and those children aren't getting an Academy Award. But maybe one day, if they really devote themselves and, really work hard and take a lot of acting classes and all that, they might be nominated and might win. But it's the difference between somebody who's a novice. It can be very, very painful to be around them when they're doing this thing that they're just learning, because they just don't know what they're doing, and it's even worse if they think that they're really great at it. Have you ever been anywhere with someone who sings off key and thinks that he or she is singing on key? I dated somebody like that. It was excruciating, and he would actually argue with me and tell me, no, I was on key. And finally, years later, he found a music teacher willing to teach him how to be more on key. But I don't want to hear. I'm not interested in hearing if he's any better, because I've done my time in hell. Right?
There you go. Little reality check on that one. Well, I think I sound great when I'm singing, but
I hope.
That's another story what someone else would think. Okay, well, let's explore. What about people who really are serious students?
It's such a joy when someone is committed to learning. Is there anything more wonderful? Because whatever level they are at today, we know that if they're committed to learning, then in a month, in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, a year, 2 years, we know that it's going to be even easier to do that activity with them, because they will be more and more skilled. So that, of course, is what I look for. As a coach, I look for people who have whatever level of skills, it doesn't matter to me, but who are really committed to learning. And I'm working with a woman right now in Ohio who just said that to me. She said, I knew that I didn't know this stuff, but I didn't know where to get the training for it. And it's such a joy, Susan, because you have the skills and now I can learn them. And of course, it's as much a joy for me as it is for her. It's really a pleasure.
Boy. Mainly when she has the desire to pay attention.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful.
And in fact, there are actually 2 women in Ohio who have said this to me. And it's just, just a pleasure. They really have a commitment to master certain skills. They have a yearning and a desire to learn, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to learn so that they have the benefits. It's not just about learning. It's about whatever your goal is. One of them is building a business. The other one is looking to build a great relationship. So you have very clear goals, defined goals, and now you have to have certain skills in order to produce those results.
I'm so happy that more and more people are finding out about you and improving their life and their accomplishments, their dreams, their goals. That's awesome.
Thank you, sweetie.
Well, let's explore what happens when people really study and begin to learn. How do you describe them?
Well, it's so interesting. People who are experts, how do they get from expertise to mastery? They start to develop new areas of that field by themselves because they've now studied and studied and studied, like Picasso. Picasso studied with so many different artists. That's why he went through so many phases. He went through a phase of Cubism. He went through this blue period. He went through all these different times based on the studying he was doing with other famous painters and sketchers. And then ultimately he ended up with his whole new style all by himself. And that's what the world needs and looks for. People who have learned all the basics there are, now they can start to invent the wheel, but at a much higher level. Don't try to figure it out for yourself as a novice. That's the number one mistake that we've made as novices, all of us. We figure that we don't need to learn from other people. We'll figure it out as we go. But unfortunately, if you try to figure out how to build a car when the car's already been designed, don't you see that you're wasting time? If you try to figure out how to be an actor and you don't know anything about acting, don't you see that you're wasting time, because there are so many different systems of acting and learning to act that exist? The same is true about communication.
That's a big one right there. Oh my, well, okay, so now we're aware that we need something further here, so I wonder if you describe finally how to describe mastery.
Okay, so you know all of the basics. Well, let me give you this great story. So I had a friend many years ago who I still know, and she used to be a very famous actress on television, and she was invited to a pro-am golf tournament. That's a professional, a golf pro, and an amateur. So I said to her, gosh, I didn't know that you play golf. And she said, well, I don't. I said, but you're going to a golf tournament, you're enrolled in a golf tournament. They expect you to be, you know, a novice or an intermediate, right? Oh, she said, I'll fake it. I said, okay, I'm really a little confused here. How can you fake being able to hit your ball and get it on the fairway? Or how can you fake hitting your ball and putting and getting it into the cup? I don't really understand. It will be fine. So this is someone who doesn't know what she doesn't know and has a very funny idea of what people are going to enjoy watching. So in fact, she kind of handled it as a comedian. That was what she wanted to do. And she, you know, was funny about not being able to play golf at all. But I can imagine that since she was invited to a pro-am tournament, she was never invited back.
Right.
You know, because a lot of people would not find this terribly funny. They would have been very annoyed.
Good point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we need to do so much homework. And
you know,
exactly.
there are skills. You might as well learn them. If you're going to participate in a certain area of life, it's so much fun if you know what you're doing. And it's really can be challenging if you have no idea.
There you go. Keep that sense of humor to get through it, but will you be invited back? Okay, yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, now let's explore, let's focus on communication. What is a key way to identify someone who is a novice in communication?
Well, that's easy. When someone's a novice in communication, they usually end up feeling triggered about something, and they make it all about you, don't they? So you're peaceful, they're freaking out about something, they accuse you of this, or they get huffy, or they walk out, or whatever it is, but they always end up blaming you rather than somebody who is a, you know, intermediate communicator, an expert communicator, where they realize what they need to do in order to stay calm and what they need to do to create the peace with you if you're not entirely calm.
That's such a, isn't that the start, the communication?
That absolutely.
Well, now how do people see moving from intermediate communication skills to mastery of communication?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. If you want to have a great relationship, you've got to be peaceful. I mean, Gigi and I have been friends for more than 8 years. I've been on this show with you for almost 8 years, I think. We've never had a fight. We've never had a fight because there's nothing worth fighting about, because each of us loves peace. We're very compassionate with each other. And, you know, it started out with me teaching Gigi, but she's been listening to this, you know, twice a month, all the time. So she's become a great communicator. When you're a great communicator, you can avoid 90% of the problems and solve the 10% that there are.
Thank you, Susan. There you go. Boy, a lot of practice. I'm getting it.
Absolutely. And I've seen you. You know, you've been able to be very calm in a couple of very challenging situations. And I've said to you guys many times, I am not always calm. That's not the goal. The goal is to be able to be calm if you wish to be. The goal is to be able to calm the other person down if you wish to be. It's not about being a robot. So you can choose to be calm and make peace with people. You can choose to tell them what's on your mind, as long as you're willing to spend the time cleaning up after that if you have to, and believe me, the odds are you will have to.
That's very true, absolutely. And it might feel good to tell them whatever is on your mind in the moment, but like you say, you're going to have to spend more time.
And also what we know from Marshall is that if you tell people, for example, heaven forbid you see a parent treating a child badly, right? You see this in the store, let's say. Well, Marshall and I had this conversation, and I said, you know, what is the most effective way to handle it when you see a parent who's treating a child very badly, even if the parent might be slapping the child or yelling at the child? He said, well, you know, naturally your inclination is you want to interrupt. You want to get in there and you want to tell the parent what to do, right? And I said, of course. He said, but if the parent is doing this, you already know they're doing it because they have no internal skills. So they have no self-empathy. And if they have no self-empathy skills, then they don't know how to calm themselves down before they get to this point, before they do this. So Marshall said, which makes perfect sense, you've got to give the parent empathy. So the temptation is to interrupt and pay attention to the child, right? But if you do that, now the parent is likely to get 2 times, 3 times, 10 times more upset. If, however, you give the parent empathy, now you begin to have a possibility of peace for everybody.
You know, I just thought of it. You'd be great on that show where it says, what would you do in certain situations?
Yes,
Wouldn't that be great? I love that. Good idea. We'll have to do a
You'll
skit.
have to call them.
Oh, yeah, let them know. Well, I could see we're already going to be going into a clip. This is going to be with Reverend Bernard Goodman, and we'll explain more about it when we come back. Please enjoy.
Marty, another Celtic queen. Oh, you're a queen, Celtic queen. That's why you have red hair. I'm sorry, I'm surprised you two don't know each other. Maybe you should keep in contact with each other and ride horses or something. Anyway, you were a Celtic queen. We didn't ever tell you this, did we? No, of course not. The reason you are the way you are in this lifetime is you are exactly that. The way you act, your attitude, the thing you do with URI, the thing that we saw you do with that woman's thing, running all over the place, taking charge of everybody's life. You know what the word balabust is? Balabust. It's a Jewish word, which means the woman who's in charge of everything, you know, the strong one. My mother was like that. That's where you are. I would say you are the, interesting you married to Bob. You are married to Bob, right? Yeah, good.
Last I knew.
Good. You're probably the head of the whole family there, which includes Sandy and Roger and the kids. You probably run the whole household. Do you do that? It's all right to say yes.
Yes.
Of course. It's your job. It's your job. It's who you are. Listen, he puts out fires. You make them, you know. So it's a good team. Yeah, yeah. So we are honoring you as the Celtic Queen today, because when you leave here today, you're going to have that energy inside of you. And it's going to start pushing you to do things you've never done before. Very strong things, very mental things, very powerful things. Things that create love more strongly than ever before in your life. Things that lead people to the fountain of love. I was going to say youth, but they're saying love. And they're going to drink from that fountain or that Kool-Aid or whatever you want to call it from that movie. I don't understand it, but so what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating pools of love through which people can jump in and partake in whatever form they may be. I don't know if I don't think bathtubs will be involved, but what do I know? You're going to have, this will be like a movie, you're going to have the ability to touch something and turn it into a pool of love. Moses, what is it? Moses did wine. Wine into water, you're going to do love. Right, that was Moses, right? Touched the thing and became, then the sea opened up for him and he swam. Okay, so you're going to be able to do that. Pools of love, these are their words. And you're going to do that in a way that will surprise you. Well, to say the least, will surprise you. And how are you going to do that will really amaze you. And where you're going to do that, you'll never believe. But you will do it. And the result will be people who are there will feel more loved than they've ever felt. What's going to happen is by these pools of love, you will open, I'm freezing right now, which means this, you will open the heart chakras. And this love will just pour out of them, and they'll be going around hugging everybody and kissing everybody, even if they don't know anybody. It doesn't make a difference. Just incredible things will happen, and this is going to be your forte before you move to the beach. By the time you move to the beach, you will have such a large following, they'll probably follow you to the beach. You're going to leave a trail, interesting. Instead of a trail of dead people, you're going to leave a trail of live people. Well, actually, the word they're using is of love people. And just like a comet, behind you will be all these people filled with love that didn't have that before you came into their lives. And some of them are going to follow you to the West Coast. Oh, not it being funny. We can't even tell you what's going to happen in your house when you start doing this, especially with the kids. Oh, forget the kids. You know, you can't fool kids. They're going to be climbing the ceilings with this. Jasmine is going to do all of her incredible stuff. Nicholas is going to start growing all kinds of new things.
Okay, what is Jasmine going to do?
All kinds of good stuff. And Nicholas is going to start doing incredible things. She has these two incredible children that are all indigo children. What?
Grandchildren.
The grandchildren? You sure?
Well, I have two incredible children, but
Right.
who you talking about?
Okay. So that's going to be fun watching them react. Is your mother here?
Yeah.
Good.
Just getting smudged.
Good. So it's your whole house is going to change. The energy in your house is going to completely change when you start doing this. So when stuff starts coming out of you, none of which you're in charge of course. You're going to be wearing a lot of red. And we don't mean just your hair. You're going to be wearing a lot of red. And if you don't have any, get spray paint or something. But you're going to be wearing a lot of red. Because you're going to become part of the Red Dragon Society. Now, the Red Dragon Society in China, the real Red Dragon Society, not like the movie nonsense, in China was devoted to giving love. In China, yeah, in China. Well, I guess they did that. I don't know if they had this, but there were a lot of concubines involved with that. I thought that was only Japanese, but I guess that in China too. A lot of these geisha-looking women, even though it's China, so I don't know what they're called in China.
Concubines.
They are concubines. In China?
Sing-song girls. The sing-song girls.
Well, if not all of them sing, but okay. They're going to come, what they're doing, what I'm seeing is that they come and treat the men to peace and love. They actually bring it with them into the room, whatever the room. And men would come to, it's like a brothel, but it's not a brothel of sex, it's a brothel of love. They would come to these places, I don't know what they were called. Called centers of love. Oh, of course, yes. And they would go in there, and these were all kinds of rich men and wealthy men and of all kinds of ages. And they would go there to be treated, to be healed, to be nourished, to be loved. And it's nothing to do with sex. They would get massages, they would get ceremonial things, they would have love energy. You have these little pools that actually heal the body. And some of them are mud, some of them are different ingredients. And they did that for them. So the men would go there and receive love, receive healing, refresh and regenerate their souls. I mean, this is all spiritual stuff. And when they would leave there 1,000 times more than the way they were when they went in. And this is what they had until things happened when they didn't have it anymore. So this is the energy that you have. And this is the energy that JP has. And both of you are going to be doing this, not together, not at the same time necessarily, not at the same place, but both of you are going to be carrying that into the world. When you land on the beach, you're going to heal the entire beach. The entire sand is going to be healed in front of your house and even to the sides of the house. And when people walk on that sand, they will get it from the bottom up, uploading from the sand, and they will actually get healed. They may not know it, but they'll just feel better. They'll always want to come back to the same area because it will feel so good to them, even without knowing why. You'll actually get to see the results of that. You'll see it in the face and stuff like that. So this is one of the things you're going to carry with you onto the sand, to the beach. And you're going to revolutionize the world. I'm sorry, people. All you're going to revolutionize the world. We can't change that.
It choked me up a little, excuse me, but it just reminded me of LOL, love out loud. I mean, that's awesome when you really have that energy and you put that forth. You see the light in the other person and you really are with them with sincere empathy, compassion, an understanding and acceptance of whatever is going on with them. I mean, it's just golden. That presence is so heartful. Of course, it's going to energize the person. We all need more of that. Men, women, children, animals, any living thing needs more of that. I really appreciate what Bernard had to say, of course, once again. Thank you, Bernard. Well, now we're going to explore some more about how to acquire this mastery in whatever area you'd like to, or multi-mastery. How about that? That sounds a little
Wonderful.
intriguing, doesn't
Wonderful,
it?
Yes.
Well, now I have a question for Susan. In relationship, mastery does that always mean that they would have a lifelong marriage?
Well, clearly not. Clearly not. So the real question is, are you peaceful and making the right choice for yourself when you go into the relationship? And are you also peaceful if you opt out, if you decide this is not the relationship for you? So if you can have a peaceful dating relationship, a peaceful marriage, if that's what you choose, a peaceful divorce, if that's what you choose, then you're obviously someone who has communication mastery. If you can't, then that's where the breakdown is, and that's what you need to focus on to get you from novice to intermediate, intermediate to expert, and expert finally to master.
Exactly. Thank you, Susan. Now, what about people who, let's say, are financial experts versus people who are financial novices?
Well, I had a friend, and he was a day trader a number of years ago. So he bought a position in, I think it was AOL. It could have been something else, but I think it was AOL. And he got on a plane to come out to California. So from the time he left his home in New York till the time he visited his friend and arrived at his friend's home in Los Angeles, it was about 10 hours. And during that time, he lost $1 million because he was a novice at day trading. Because day traders understand, and that's the reason they used to sit there with M&Ms and water and not move, and they couldn't even be away from the computer long enough to go to the bathroom. So this guy just didn't know, and he figured he could just pick up his position whenever he felt like it later, and of course it was a disaster.
There you go. That reminds me of a friend who said that he could easily pass the law bar exam without even prepping for it. I'm like, I'd like to see that.
Go right ahead. So did he? Did he take you up on this?
Hasn't really
Not yet.
gone
Not
through
yet.
with
Okay.
that.
All
But
right.
wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Wait a minute is a good response.
Give a call to Susan first.
Yeah, some people don't know what they don't know. That's an example right there. Yeah.
I don't know why that came to mind. No offense. I love you regardless.
Yeah.
Well, let's explore this, Susan. In a career, let's say we may begin as a novice and work our way up to intermediate, expert, and master. And I'm curious, is this everyone's goal?
Not at all. You know, first of all, it depends on what the field is, right? You know, so you may start out as a, the lowest rung on the ladder in IT computer work. But if you're going to end up as the CEO of a computer tech company, you really have to be a genius, and you may not be. So it has a lot to do with what your goals are. It has a lot to do with what your intention is. It has a lot to do with what your brain is like. And it has a lot to do with the focus and determination and practice that you are so sure this is who you are and this is who you want to be, and you're not going to let anything stand in your way. So goal reaching and ambition has a huge part to play here. Goal reaching is that this young man or young woman would say by the year 2020, let's say, I am the CEO of the such and such IT company, right? Or COO. And in order to have that come true, you have to understand that there are a lot of things you have to actually do. It's not just about sitting at home and saying, I am by such and such a date, I am. No, it's about really being clear about what that means, doing what it takes.
One of those reality checks again. Well, now, Susan, would you say that, let's say, the key is to understand what your goal is, and if your goal is mastery, then we would, let's say, need to get very serious as soon as possible, like even consider college?
Yes, of course. You know, normally somebody who ends up being a great writer, a great novelist, a great nonfiction writer, or even a great poet, they're doing this when they're in 5th and 6th grade. I've written 3 books, and I was writing when I was a kid. I was writing poetry when I was a kid. I was writing fiction. I was writing nonfiction. I just always loved to write. And this seems to be the truth of the other people that I know who are writers and authors.
Oh, I understand that completely. Thank you, Susan. The big question is it ever too late?
Well, it's too late for some things. Of course it is. It's never too late to be an expert at something. It's never too late to be a master of something, because you just would then build on the skills that you already have. But certainly, if you're not already an Olympic athlete, you're not going to start trying to figure that out at 40 or later. That's just silly. And though you do see athletes going from one sport to another, I just saw on TV that they've got a show about people diving, these horrible high dives, dangerous high dives, and they're using athletes in one field who now are making the crossover. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is one of the athletes who is competing in, this TV show and doing these high dives, and Greg Louganis, I think his name is, yeah. I mean, he's going to be one of the people teaching them how to dive. So now that just sounds crazy and scary to me. But of course, I'm not an athlete, and I don't, I would never consider doing anything like that, even if I were, 16. So it's really interesting. It's never too late, but there are certain caveats about your body and gravity and time and energy and health that, you want to focus on.
A lot of considerations there. Well, what about people who feel that it's hopeless, and even if they don't have addictions, they're not still creating a life that is really wonderful for themselves? Why is that?
Well, it's funny. I misspoke the diver's name. His name is Louganis. I'm thinking of the jewelry designer, the Greek jewelry designer, which is not surprising, is it? When you think about me. So people really have to understand that this is just a brain activity. Mastery. Mastery is about your brain. They say what's very interesting is that the brain of an Olympic athlete is not very different from yours and mine, but the application of the brain, what the brain is willing to do, is different. So then I say it's a different brain. Because if I'm on an exercise machine for like 2-3 minutes, I'm thinking it's time to get off. And, an athlete is thinking, I just got on, right? So if we have brains that look the same, if they're going to check the brains out, then there's something very different about the way I'm using my brain or the way, a professional athlete is using his or hers, right? So there's an intention, there's a focus, there's a different goal, and there's a pleasure center involved. Because remember, the things we do because they feel good, not because they feel bad. So if I'm a professional athlete, let's say I'm hooked on adrenaline, I'm hooked on all the different brain chemistry that makes you feel good after you've worked out. So I don't feel hopeless when I'm doing it because I know if I keep doing it, I'm going to get high. I'm going to get a runner's high, right? Now, I don't need a runner's high. Hence, I don't run. I wake up and I feel good. Well, the shame of that is that if I woke up and I felt lousy, maybe I'd run more, right? But it's really about what you've decided you need in order to make life decent for you. And it's based on past experience. So if somebody keeps saying to you, hey, Susan, if you run 10 blocks, you are going to feel better than you've ever felt in your life. But I know that that person is not as happy as I am. I would say to them, hey, I'm already 10 times happier than you are, Bob, so I'm perfectly happy sitting here. But if I'm someone who's not as happy as Bob, I might be really tempted. Okay, Bob, let's go for a run. Let me see.
Check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, we can experiment a little with ourselves, knowing ourselves.
Yes.
And that's a good
You
point.
certainly can.
Moving on, gosh, put the feelings aside and do what you know you need to do.
Just
I
do
think that's,
it.
yeah. Well, so once again, how much of mastery is hard work?
Well, yeah, we know that Tiger Woods practiced golf every single day. We know these Olympic athletes are on the ice or in the pool or whatever it is, 5, 6, 7 hours a day, usually 6 days a week, sometimes 7, right? So we know that. We know that, and we know that the difference between a gold medal winner and someone who doesn't take home a medal at all is usually 2 to 3% in their performance. It's not usually a radical shift. Somebody's lousy and somebody's a genius. It's just that extra bit. It's the same with acting. Again, if you watch the Oscars, there were some performances, particularly in the Best Actor category, that were unbelievable. I mean, some of these performances, the guy in Life of Pi, the performance of Joaquin Phoenix, unbelievable. These guys were seamless. And so it may look as if their performance is 100% difference from the other guys. But really, everybody had to memorize all their lines. Everybody had to have the appropriate emotion behind their lines. Everybody had to move their bodies while at the same time they were speaking their lines. That's most of what goes on. Then there's the subtle difference between a performance like a Meryl Streep would give and somebody who you never hear of again.
Oh my, there you go. That's a perfect example. Thank you, Susan. Well, so what part does encouragement play in moving someone from being a novice to, let's say, being a master of whatever particular skill set?
This is a very interesting question because as a coach, if you've ever been on a sports team and you have a coach, they are not going, oh, good job, Gigi. Good job, honey. Yes. Come back to it. No, forget it. They're like, So it depends. If you want to be a master, you really must master self-empathy. I'm really feeling exhausted and I need some rest, breathe. I'm really feeling overwhelmed and I just want some peace, breathe. But at the same time, I want to win the Olympics, so I'm going to keep myself here. I'm going to stay in the pool. After a certain while, your swimming coach, your skiing coach, you're any kind of a coach, is not going to be willing to do that for you day after day, hour after an hour. They're there to pull you, like I am with my clients, to pull you out of a funk when you really just can't do it anymore, you're just exhausted, and to get you to go that extra 5 or 10%. Somebody can do a cheerleader routine on you, but nobody is going to keep making you do it to the point that you become a master. Nobody is going to be that dedicated to you. They've got their own stuff that they've got to be cheering themselves on about.
There you go. So there has to be something within the person themselves, of course.
Absolutely.
Attitude, whatever.
Ambition.
That's
It's
the word.
the driving force behind this is ambition. You have to have enough self-respect to believe that you're capable of accomplishing something great, and then you've got to work with some experts to decide what that is. And then when you're going for it, it's got to be based on ambition. Otherwise, why would anybody, I don't understand this, why would anybody get up at 5 in the morning and go to a swimming pool? Right? I mean, you may love to swim, but in the winter in some of these states, in the winter, at 5 in the morning, it seems unimaginable to me. But they have this love of it, and they have this dream, this Olympic dream.
Oh, I love that. I love even hearing about it. I love that. That's exciting. All right, well, let's explore this. I know that since society is right now so competitive because of all the people from all over the world clamoring for the few spots in any American college or corporation, what happens to kids who, let's say, who don't really get serious very young and focus on their goals?
Yeah, they're just swept aside. You know, when you and I were growing up, life was much less competitive. Much less competitive. I mean, when you and I were growing up, if somebody's parent went to Harvard, the kid got into Harvard, you know, with very little fuss and muss. And nowadays, I mean, forget it. You know, my uncle and my aunt and uncle made huge contributions to Harvard. Their 3 children went to Harvard, and only one of their grandchildren went to Harvard. And I'm assuming that if all of the grandchildren had been given seats at Harvard, they would have gone. You know, at least they would have tried it for a year to see if they liked it. And so it's a question of really understanding the competition that there is right now. Yes, it's great. If you go to Match.com, it's great that there are ostensibly 30 million partners for you to pick from. So that's exciting. You know, in dating and sales, it's a numbers game. The more, the merrier. But if you're like my client who just got early decision at Brandeis University, that's really thrilling because how many seats were there and how many people competed for those seats, and she got in, and that is a triumph. And it's a triumph to get into that school, which is a great school this year, compared to when I was in high school and one of my friends got in. It's a much bigger deal now because the competition is from people all over the world.
Oh boy, that's something to pay attention,
Yeah,
even if
yeah,
you have
yeah.
youngsters to encourage them, of
Yeah,
course.
it's not just about starting their college fund when they're born. It's about understanding that if you do want your children to get a great education, and if you do want your children to have the kind of career for which they need a great education, you pretty much have to do what my aunt and uncle did, which is they had a Harvard banner over the children's cribs, which I got to tell you looked crazy to me as I was growing up. It looked like torture to me. But when we look at the different Asian families whose children are learning special systems to excel at math, there's a special system now I didn't even know. And their children are doing all these different things to improve their brains at such an early age. That's how those kids are going to make it in a very competitive world.
Oh boy, that's really getting focused early.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, well, thank you, Susan. When you're at the top, let's say, of the ladder in whichever field, what's required to really stay there?
Well, it's interesting, you know, in so many fields, you have to do certain things in order to stay at the top. For example, if you're a professor at a university, you have to have books and articles published. You know, if you're a music professor at a university, you have to have albums come out, you know, of whatever it might be, or perform in orchestras. You know, there are things that you have to do that demonstrate that the universe, not just the university, acknowledges who you are. And so that's true for all of us. If you are at the top of your game or you want to get to the top of your game, understand that there's no place where you're then going to be able to rest and hang out, that you constantly have to be doing it. It's like one of those lap pools that has current. And so if you don't keep swimming, the current is going to push you against the back wall. That's really what life's like.
Oh, I like that comparable. That's perfect. Well, okay, thank you. God, I'm getting all worked up. Now, let's say it all boils down to goal reaching. Of course, I'm sure it does, Susan. But can you remind us all what that really looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So if your goal is to be a master of communication, no more fights in your house, then your goal is, number one, that beginning March 1st, 2013, or April 1st, 2013, pick a date, I am peaceful 23 and a half hours a day, each and every day. Because if you want to be a master of communication, you have to be peaceful. Then, by April 1st, 2013, whenever Bob, that would be your husband, your boyfriend, your child, whatever, whenever Bob is triggered, I am able to bring Bob back to peace within X minutes, so within 5 minutes. Whenever I feel upset, by April 1st, 2013, I am able to bring myself back to peace within 4.5 minutes. So that's the maximum you have before other people start to notice that you're really angry and they start to get weird and angry too. So those are the kind of goals we're talking about in communication. Whatever else we may be talking about here, whether it's sports, whether it's money, whether it's health, you have to start with by day, month, year, then I, then the verb, receive, have, do, whatever it may be, whatever that verb is, and then very specifics and always the positive words. So you may receive, by April 1st, 2013, if this is about money, you may receive $100,000. Maybe you get a new client. Maybe you get a new job. Maybe that's the wrong date if it's a new job. Maybe that date needs to be June 1st, 2013.
Beautiful. I really appreciate everything you've shared with us, Susan.
You're so welcome. My pleasure, always.
See, you're always highly informative, and I know that if you want those big rewards in life, it does require what you've been sharing with us, mastery, and that a few people born with tremendous natural abilities, even they need to work hard to move from being novices to intermediate to experts, and finally to them
Yes!
being masters. There you go. And we have an example right here. And I know that you shared with me that the Beatles performed 10,000 tours in Germany before they were acknowledged.
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
Hours.
Thank you. Before they were acknowledged to be great. And then, of course, they made it look so easy.
That's right. That's exactly what happens.
Well, my goodness, what a lot of information. I appreciate, of course, once again, Susan, and you'll be back with us in no time for
Yes.
another hot topic
Yes.
of how people can live a more enriched life. I love that.
Thank you so much.
Now, I'd like to just say to our viewers that we are on live every Tuesday night from 8 to 9, and also throughout the week, various times you can check out. And also, we're in our 8th plus year, and we certainly appreciate hearing the enjoyment of the wonderful guests that I do have, and your appreciation, of course, of our sharing this language of compassion with you. great opportunity. And if you do have some questions or some challenges or concerns, you can give us a contact. I love getting this information. Phone call 805-698-8233 or Gigi Amour at cox.net, and we'll be getting back to you. And I'm also going to recommend that you can check out our website, compassionateconnection.tv. And now I'd like to just focus that Susan Allan has in our local paper Ask the Love and Relationship Coach in our Santa Barbara Family Life magazine. It's also available online, santabarbarafamilylife.com, and you always have, once again, informative information in there, Susan. And you can also go to susanallen.org or give Susan that complimentary phone call that she'd be more than willing to enjoy with you at 805-695-8405. So I'm thinking now, what else? Any upcoming announcements I missed on your behalf?
Thank you. You know, Howard Wills is going to be in Ojai, possibly Santa Barbara, but he's definitely going to be in Ojai in April. And that's really thrilling. And then Howard is going to be speaking at the SEER conference, SEER, and so will I. And that's going to be in Los Angeles. And that's going to be, I believe, the end of April, possibly early May. So I'm really excited. Thank you for giving me a chance to announce that.
Perfect. Will they find that information on your website, Susan?
They just have to send me an email. It's not on the website yet, but send me an email and I promise I'll give you all the info.
Perfect. Well, I would just like to say thank you to our sponsors of our show. We're going to go enjoy a great meal over 422 Milpa Street. If you'd like to show up and chat with us, we'd really appreciate that too. And also, I'd like to say thank you to Lucia Salon for doing great work on me, fluffing me up every week. I love it. And I'm in such gratitude to Fred Winter, our director, who we, of course, could not do the show without. Tyler Geck, our technical support. Awesome. He keeps us updated on all kinds of things. And everyone here at the studio, Matt, Skip, Mark, JP, so many people over the years, their support and cooperation. And for our viewing guests, I do wish that you have countless moments of inescapable compassion. Thank you for watching. Good evening.
Express your endless compassion. Oh, it's where I wanna be. Compassion when broken hearts bleed. Yeah. Sweet compassion when my soul's in need. I find compassion for friends and enemies. My own compassion is where my spirit breathes. Oh, compassion when broken hearts bleed. Oh, sweet, 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 sweet compassion when my soul's in